GMO. Let's remind you that it's 4 days now to the conduct of Nigeria's general elections. As the events shaping the polity continue to drop in rapid fashion, we'll always be here to help you catch up. Today on the program, Rivers APC loses bid to present candidates for elections as Supreme Court strikes out party's appeal, challenging High Court verdict. INEC engages EFCC, FIU, CBN and others to track campaign funds. Later on the show today, President Buhari tasks traditional rulers to take responsibility for security in their areas. Will not be alone. I'll be hanging out with Gani Kayode Balogun and Tunde Abaton. Journalist Hangout starts now. Well, the deed is done. The damage appears beyond redemption for the Rivers State chapter of the All Progressives Congress. The APC in the state had its fate sealed as the Supreme Court of Nigeria ruled that it cannot present candidates for the forthcoming elections. The Apex Court had struck out the appeal filed by the party challenging the judgment of the State High Court, which barred the APC from conducting primaries to nominate candidates for elections. And in a unanimous judgment delivered by Justice Aliu Sanusi, the court held that the party's case is dead on arrival, having been barred by other courts from conducting the exercise. And that will be the basis of our first discussion on the program. Well, welcome again, gentlemen. Welcome. I'll begin with you, Gani. Now, what are your thoughts on this development? I mean, how much of a spanner does it create for the APC?
Nothing could be worse as far as APC is concerned. That is the state where the DG of the Buhari campaign administration, Mr. Rotimi Amici, is from. He was the former governor. And that means technically the man who is going to be responsible for the re-election of the president has no stake in that election beyond that of the president, because his party cannot present candidate at the state level. Of course, we saw this coming. We knew the moment that people were going to court for frivolous reasons, that one state will have to suffer the consequences that we are seeing now. You must remember that the State High Court stopped them from conducting the congresses to produce candidates. Now, it's a catch-22. If they do not do congresses at a particular time, they cannot present candidates to INEC. Here, there's a court judgment stopping them from doing it, and time was running out. So they are between the devil and the deep blue sea. So either way, they now took what we could now call nowadays, we call self-help, by going ahead with the Congress in spite of existing court order, stopping them doing that. And that's why they lost the case. Because you can't build something on nothing. As far as the law is concerned, there was a subsidiary order restricting them from conducting an election. I think this will be a lesson. And I think it's funny that Rivers is always presenting us with cases that will define the future of political judicial interpretation. Remember, it was all on these states that somebody who did not contest an election became the governor, simply by going to court, and the court realized the fact that he was the candidate, and that's why they changed the rules. I'm sure before the next election, we are going to see some changes that will ensure that courts cannot stop parties from doing congresses. Because that's what this means. A court sat down somewhere and said, you cannot hold congresses. And that's what the Supreme Court has confirmed. If the court says you cannot hold, then you cannot hold.
But Tunde, now, your views on this one. There were two factions now, the Magnus Abbey faction and the other faction held by Mr. DK now. But what do you make of this? Mr. Tonya Cole, I should say. What do you make of this now? How does it play out for you?
Well, in the first instance, we have to know that the judiciary at any point in time has to have its way, and it has to have its say, and its pronouncement has to be final. In the first instance, it shows the lack of cohesion within the ruling party, not only at the federal level, but at the state level, more so at the level in which the transport minister has to slug it out with another person chiefly for the party. When two elephants fight, the grass is over. at this point in time, it is the party in the River State that will suffer. And this is a lesson to us that we have to respect party discipline. And a party has to learn how to respect its own rules.
But
because if the party has to respect its own rules, there won't have been any reason for the court to come in. And by conducting an illegal Congress in the first instance. So if it is not illegal, the court or the judiciary has no reason to even declare them illegal.
Could this even have been his aim, the aim of Senator Magnus Abe and his group?
It could not have been their aim. Their aim is to seek redress when they know that the party is against its own rules, it's going against its own rules. So the best thing is to seek the third party. If the party fails to have an internal mechanism to resolve its own crisis, the best thing is to appeal to the third party, and the third party and the final adjudicator in this respect is the State High Court, the Federal Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has made the final pronouncement. It means the APC has to put its house in order, and it means the party has to learn to respect its own rules. It means the party has to learn and imbibe the spirit of the party discipline, and it means the party elders, if there is any in River State. And like he said, River State happens to be the only state where we produce a governor without a party. In the case of the PDP, Mr. Rotimi Amishi became a governor of the state without contesting any election. Right. Because the election of Tim Principal, what was his name? It was annulled midway. So he has to vacate the seat, and the seat has to be yielded to Mr. Amishi. So the problem in PDP has now been transformed transferred into the really APC, because Mr. Amishi left the PDP, and the problem that festered in the PDP has now gone into the APC. And unfortunately, because the party lacks internal self-discipline and internal mechanism for resolving crisis, the party has to repeat itself. It's a repeat of history. It's unfortunate, but it's a repeat of history. But on the other side? But on the other side, this time around. So initially, it used to be the PDP. Now it has to be the APC, which means at any point in time, any party that is poised to win election will face this crisis, except we have a party that has discipline and that has a respect, whose members have a respect for its own internal conflict and the rule of law.
Which happens to be absent in the APC in Rivers State. If we can begin with talking about the fact that this matter could as well have been settled without having taken a recourse to the courts.
Yes, but you are talking about two very big egos, two very powerful. And I worked in Rivers State for a while, and I'm familiar personally with both parties as well as the current governor. And I know how stubborn they can be when it comes to issues of principle. So in some areas of the country, yeah, they probably form a compromise. But in that part of the country, they usually will stand on principle till the end of the day. So I know from the beginning that the best bet was to vacate that judgment before the expiration of the time given by INEC to conduct congresses, or to appeal to INEC that because they are being held back by court judgments, INEC should give them the go-ahead, an extension as it were, so that they can do. But by taking on self-help, from that point in time, you cannot build something on nothing.
And that was what the justices of the Supreme Court said.
They're absolutely correct.
That at a point, the matters, the contests between the two groups now had become an academic exercise, having been statute barred, and in your words now, having no leg upon which to stand on.
The grievance of the party, of the contestant.
So you can just imagine that, okay, it was the judges now, based on the facts on the ground, it seemed like their hands were tied.
No, there's nothing they can do. You can't award something. You can't answer a prayer.
That was not asked for.
That's the problem. Because they did not do it where they are supposed to have done it. At the lower court, they ought to have had something vacated before the expiration of the deadline to do congresses. Well, maybe they thought they were in government, or that it's going to be business as usual.
All the time.
That they can do that and get away with it. And it's not peculiar to Rivers. It happened in pockets of states around the country where governors or ministers or whoever thinks is the big honcho in town will just turn the law again upside down and then suffer the consequences. What others did is that they didn't insist on using the party platform. They simply moved to other platforms because they realized that once congresses are not held, you have no leg to stand on. So they simply migrated their supporters
to the other
to
party.
other platforms.
So all elections, in Rivers State now will not hold except for the presidential
No,
elections now.
APC.
For the APC. APC will not field candidates.
Elections
APC
will hold.
Right. Except for the presidential,
Presidential
where
election.
the president have of course gone on to Rivers State, to sell himself
Has
to
gone to
the
Rivers State
electorate in Rivers State now.
I repeated what has been repeating for a while. Vote your conscience, vote for whoever you want, and all that.
Yes, but that is even, another issue now. Yeah. Now that it's just going to be the presidential elections that the APC will be contesting, so to speak, now in Rivers State now. We've already seen Mr. Tony Cole, canvassing for votes for the president. But in this case now, do you see both factions coming together to at least present a uniform or united front for the party?
Both factions are relevant because the president is still in power, because their party is still in power. It's unfortunately, I have to refer to my state, Ogun State. Ogun State have to do the same thing. Both factions have to come to power because the other reconciliation faction, the APM, had the intention of moving its own structure back to the APC if the president wins the election. If the president failed in his re-election, which means the party will become an orphan because it has no presidential candidate at the federal level. The party has already adopted. So what it means is that both Abe and Rotimi Amechi, they have to come together and work together for the success of the president, for them to become relevant. Because if they don't work together, they become irrelevant. And their relevance today in that state is because the president's election is not affected by the ruling of the Supreme Court.
Right. Your take?
Yes, I said it. And like I said earlier, you have to understand that even now, because of these judgments, I'm sure they are going to move to smaller parties and look for candidates of like minds. So some people will benefit from these judgments, apart from the governor, who is obviously the main beneficiary of this particular judgment. I'm sure there will be pockets of candidates that they've worked with before at lower levels, House of Reps, House of Assembly, that they can aggregate behind and make sure they are elected.
You mean for this coming elections?
Yeah, for the March elections, or even for the House and Senate. They'll just adopt one of the other candidates outside the PDP because they have no candidates, and then decide to vote along that line to support them. And if they are lucky, maybe get a few of them elected.
You're talking about the party itself.
Not about the gladiators.
Behind, in the party.
The two of them.
The two can now go on to support
look for
other candidates.
Areas of interest.
I'm sure they have people that
that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I'm sure it's no problem. Because I'm sure they have backup plan.
So what it means is that if Party A, that belongs to Mr. Tony Cole, believes in Party A, they will switch their supporters to Party A with the intention that at the end of the day, the president wins the election, he will turn back to the party so that they will hold the structure. The same thing is playing out in Ogun State.
We should leave Ogun State alone.
We cannot leave Ogun State
struggling.
It's unfortunate because in 1890, the first form of organized government in Nigeria, before we had our amalgamation, started in 1898. And it's unfortunate that that kind of thing happened yesterday in Ogun State.
Again, if you go to Ogun State, like I said,
let's get to hear from our very first caller on the show today. Olawale is joining us from Lagos here. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Carry on, please.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. You're live. Please carry on.
Alagbala Olawale speaking.
Okay.
You're welcome. Carry on, please.
I think I'm on to journalist Hangout.
Yes, you are.
The show is on and you are live. Please carry on.
Okay, thank you. This issue of Rivers State, and to refer to the issue of Ogun State, I think it's the same issue. So now, this Saturday election for Rivers State, will it come up or will it not come up?
It will come up.
Saturday is the presidential election.
It will come up.
So that is coming up.
It has nothing to do with the other elections.
Hello?
So that will hold. That will even hold in March as well. Elections will also hold in March too. All right, thank you very much, Olawale. Of course, we'll join our viewers to keep the calls coming in. We want to hear your views. I want to talk about Toye Cole now, because he was by and large being backed by former Governor Rotimi Amechi, who is, of course, a key person now in the president's re-election bid, of course. He seemed to be like the poster boy, so to speak, of the party.
Yes.
I guess the party was trying to, give the state that face. Okay, this is someone who has done so well in business, and he should be able to help the party's cause in Rivers State. Of course, that has been a key battle now for APC in Rivers State. You just said now that Governor Nyesom Wike seems to be the largest, biggest beneficiary now of this whole fracas now.
Yeah.
What's your take?
Well,
Before you say that, we have a caller from Taraba State. Bobby, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
You're live. Please carry on.
Well done. I just want to chip in 2 words. I think our politicians don't normally think about the previous things that normally happens, right? I remember vividly in 2007, such incident that just happened in Rivers State happened to the present DG of the APC, that Rotimi Amechi himself.
Yeah.
He went to the court and he actually won. So it just bothers me why they don't learn from the previous mistakes of the previous parties. And I think this should serve as a signal that such kind of tragedy that has happened before or presently can never happen in our kind of democracy. May God bless us, and let's keep up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The challenge here really is that the genesis of this problem is the fact that the NWC of the APC cannot enforce its own rules when it comes to direct primaries. And that's the source of all the problems they're having all over the country. Rivers is just the poster, like I said, the poster state for the kind of shenanigans that are going on all over Nigeria. Because the NWC made a pronouncement that parties must go through congresses and there must be direct primaries. And then some people kicked against this. And then they now said, fine, some states can adopt. Once you open the window for a caveat, you are no longer in control of where the thing is going to end. What I thought was that they would have insisted that everybody must use the same thing, and everybody will get there. So on the issue of Rivers, I'm sure Nigerian politicians that I know will do what they did with the law after Rotimi Amechi won. They now ensured that you cannot win that kind of case again, because the electoral law has changed that. Now the party is the owner of the tickets, and they are the one who determine the person that will carry the flag for them.
Right, and like the dailies now had already said that there was going to be a harvest of cases today. The elections are going to start over the weekend, and we just can't get an end, so to speak. After the election, gives us a sense now of how the Elections Petitions Tribunal will be, the involvement of the court, despite the fact that political parties have their own internal mechanisms of settling disputes. I mean, what do you have to say about the involvement of the judiciary? They seem to have their hands tied in all of this.
Well, I wouldn't say the judiciary have their own hands tied, because when we look at it, every institution of state in Nigeria has its own service that is passing through. The judiciary has another opportunity to make sure they have enough on their hands already. They have an opportunity to make sure that they dispense justice without fear of favor, affection, or ill will. They have an opportunity to ensure that none of the parties, because besides the presidential election, and it is not impossible that we have the litigations over the presidential election, but besides the presidential election, the only area we are going to have a litigation is the National Assembly and the governorship election. Because when you look at the way, like I said, the ruling party was unable to stand on its own rule by saying it's either direct or indirect primary. That caveat has made it possible for all the litigants. So if you have a lot of litigants from the parties is in control of 24 states of the federation. So 24 states, with the exception of probably 6 or 7 states that are okay. The other states, there's an opportunity for the aggrieved participants to approach the judiciary. So that is the more reason why the judiciary, because they are going to be tempted by a lot of things besides the presidential election. So this is the more reason why it is even good that the judiciary is going through a test it's going through now. So it will afford Felix of the opportunity to shake itself up and give us some confidence that the way they handle the litigation that is going to arise from all the primaries and likely inconclusive election will be able to cement our hope and give us hope that at the end of the day, we're going to have democracy in this country because this is the biggest test.
Right. In 2015, we saw how the elections played out in Rivers State. There were records of violence in Rivers State, and now, indeed, massive. And now we're entering into. There've been some signs on the ground. Foreign nations out there are, expressing some concern now on
about Nigeria.
About the political terrain in the country. In the country. Some even going as far as comparing the country, God forbid, to Venezuela, Venezuela and all. But there's projections on ground. What do you see as per how safe the process will be? Are you as concerned, for example, if we look at Rivers State?
I'm not.
Indeed.
I'm not.
You understand the history of Nigeria very well.
We've gone down this road before. And usually we come out a little bruised, but we come out barely unscratched. I told people when they asked me, I said, people are expecting Nigeria to have broken up 4 years ago, and we are still here. In fact, there are some movies in America that were based on the fact that Nigeria is either at war or that we've broken up or there are challenges we are facing, that they made us the bad guys. I'm talking about movies done during that period, because they assume that will not overcome that particular divide in 2015. We did. And we overcome this. Even this is a lesser thing to do than 2015. Right. So I have no fears at all. But about those who interfere, if I can use that word, in our internal affairs, there's a difference between monitoring and observing. They are not the same thing. A monitor has the power to ask why the process is going like this.
Okay, please hold that thought. Richard, you're welcome from Taraba State. Please join the show.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. You're welcome.
Well, my contribution on this is that although it has played out the way it did, and I believe that this, both the judgment from the court, all is right, in order to always correct the political parties and their gladiators, though they don't learn from history. They don't learn from their previous mistake anyway. But, and I hope that Zamfara also will play out the same, because they didn't have their primaries there. Okay, one thing I want to add again is our president in Ogun State is, I don't know his position is always anti-party, because I don't know why the president will go to go and tell the people to vote the candidate that.
All right, Richard. That's, well, thank you for your point. Your final take, Tunde, now. What do you have to say now? Are you as unconcerned?
Well, I've always told people who, whenever the issue of insecurity is raised, is that Native Nigeria went through the same process. You see, we are going through the same process because the governance and business and government, it takes 90% away from the life of Nigerians. 90% of the life of Nigerians is dictated by the government. And that is why there's too much tension. There's always tension and fear of violence. 1959, we went through this thing. 1964, 1979, 1983, 1993, and 1999, 2007. We have always been going through all election periods in Nigeria. Even prophets that have not heard from God, they will tell you that election is going. Those who have not heard from God, because God don't prophesy, God will only declare what he has to say. But those who saw no vision, you will claim that they have seen vision. So I think Nigerians should make up their mind that no matter what happens, we have a country, and we have no other country. We have to make it work. This year election will come and go, and there won't be any problem. It will come and go. We should not entertain any fear. It will come and go. It is those people that are against Nigeria that will not witness Nigeria. Nigeria, we are going to have this election, and this election will come and go. But we should not believe, we should tell all those people who are participants, like agents, like politicians, and the judiciary, because the judiciary has a role to play, the police has a role to play, and the INEC is the chief umpire. They should play according to the rules. If everybody play according to the rules, we'll be able to caution their supporters. And caution their supporters, we'll be able to separate the troublemakers.
All right.
And at the end of the day, Nigeria will be bigger than everybody.
Than it is indeed. All right, gentlemen, let's take a breather now. Still to come on the show, INEC engages EFCC, FIU, and CBN, the Apex Bank, and other bodies to track campaign funds. How will they go about that? That's in a moment. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on Journalist Hangout. So, check-in campaign spending as well as the issue of vote selling and buying appear to be big monsters bedeviling the electoral system in Nigeria. And to check the menace, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is now calling on anti-graft agencies and financial institutions to help in tracking campaign finances of political parties and candidates. At the inauguration of a 10-member group in Abuja on Monday, INEC's National Commissioner Professor Antonia Okosi-Simbine said the agencies are to monitor spending of candidates and political parties to ensure they do not exceed the approved limit. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Financial Intelligence Unit, as well as the Central Bank of Nigeria, including National Broadcasting Commission, a host of others, Nigeria Communications Commission, the police itself, so many, even the media is involved. The elections are due in 4 days. The committee sure has its work cut out. Today, what do you make of this? It gets wider and wider.
Well, I think when you really look at it, this year election, this is the first time in the history of Nigeria that spending is being cautiously done by all the stakeholders, that is all the interested parties. Without necessarily ruling out the rules. You can see for yourself, if you have covered the election in Nigeria.
It was obvious. This one is pretty obvious.
1983, 1999, and 2011. It was quite obvious that people are becoming very spicy. The first reason you adduce for this is that those people who get to office, the cost of getting to office, there's an advantage in this for Nigeria. If it's going to cost you less money to get into office by not spending money without necessarily anybody applying the brakes anywhere. Because what these institutions are doing, EFCC, financial unit, INEC, and others, is to apply the brakes as to how much people say. So that when they get to government, it's another way of against corruption by other means. But number one, people are now applying the brakes. Even politicians themselves, they are applying the brakes. If we apply the brakes now, during the electoral period, I think Nigeria will be better. Better in the sense that to reduce the propensity for stealing money when we get to office. Another thing is that all these organs that you mentioned, the SFFU, they have always been in existence. Why are we not following the rules? The INEC has been in existence. The CBN, because of the BVN, bank verification number, they have a way of monitoring your money. But I tell you, like he observed before the beginning of the program, there's a way in which people, stakeholders can spend money on behalf of politicians. That one has not been covered by the law. Because I can decide to say, let's say, I want to print 100,000 copies of poster for you. How do you track that one? How do you attribute that money to you directly? It cannot be attributed. You can say...
Right. Based on that point, the law, that's the Electoral Act as amended, also keeps a cap on individual donations. You can't spend more than $1 million. And there are also punishments if you are found, at fault. Won't that also put a cap also on excess individual donations?
But you can't control the number of individuals. Yes. You just put a cap on what I can spend. There's no cap, the same cap applies to what my wife can spend. Because
he even said, if you don't do it in cash or in kind, now, okay.
If I have 10 children and all of us want to donate to a particular campaign, and the cap is 1 million per individual, everybody in my family will donate 1 million. We've made the cap, we've managed to, in that family alone, give 10 million to that campaign. So there's always a loophole in whatever you want to do. But that's not really my concern. My concern, like he said, is the fact that these are not things that should be news. It should be part of the institutions that we have in the system that will do their normal jobs. Parties are supposed to give their books to INEC at the end of the year. This is what we made, this is what we spent. And these questions ought to be asked by everybody on this list. Is there a fraud in what parties has done? That's the job of SFU. Is there people doing things against the law? That's the job of SSS. People should extract their own jobs quietly
And
without
do it.
making a show of it.
And do it.
And that's my concern. And we like a lot of fraternity in this country. This is not something you need to announce. Just something that comes with the system. That during this election time, 2 months after, you expect your returns on election spending and copy the following people. EFCC, you understand what I'm saying? So instead of making a show out of it.
this. But then Gani mentioned parties should naturally, comply with the directive. You should be able to be sending returns. But INEC has always had the challenge now. In 2015, it was recorded that there was the controversy as to the level of compliance by the parties. How often do the parties send in? How often do the candidates themselves also send in?
I think there's something we have to do in that regard. And the buck stops at the table with INEC. How? We have about 73 political parties that are registered now. If we are not more than that. 91 political parties. How many of the parties that participated in the 2015 election, how many of them did their returns? Most of the parties, the chairman of the parties are the husbands, while the wives are the secretary, and the children are the public secretary or financial secretary. So when you have such a situation, you don't have accountability. Let the INEC make sure that they implement and they go by their own rule. That by making sure that all political parties, the election will come to an end by March 2nd. By June ending, they should be able, each of the 91 political parties in there should be able to send a return to the CBN, to the INEC, and to the police, to the SFU, and others about their spendings. They should not wait for when the election is coming. That is what the president has been telling us, that let all the institutions of state do their own job. If everybody does his own job, as and as when due, as and as when appropriate, there won't be any need for an extrajudicial law to be coming 2 weeks or 4 days or few days for the election that you want to monitor them. Why are you monitoring them? If any party that refuses to send their statement of account to the INEC 2 weeks or probably 4 months after the election, they should be sanctioned.
Right. And then this particular group now, this one is going to be headed by a CSO, that's a Center for Social Justice. Now that's going to head this unit now. The mandate is to turn in a report in 6 months' time. I'm asking now, in addition to the fact that this group only just got inaugurated, it's going to end, they will stop their work after the March elections. The time spate given to them now, do they have that much clout to garner in
this is just about
records of parties and all that?
This is, like I said, it's just additional bureaucracy for what we already had on ground. Their job is quite straightforward. Just bring in your returns. NBC, give us the number, call your stations. Let's see how much money they made from each party and how was it paid for. NBC will forward it. Nigerian Communication Commission, how many jingles or how many SMS were paid for. You understand? So all these are standard things they can gather together in a couple of weeks and then do a report on it. My concern is the fact that we should not be making a show or something that's as basic as this.
Well, now that it's in our face, there's also been the long-standing argument about how realistic is INEC's mandate to parties now to cap their spendings. Of course, it's already been established on this table that there hasn't been as much spending as we have recorded in previous years. I mean, it's glaring, it's in your face, like you said, for those who have been covering elections like as yourself. But the 1 billion cap now, for example, now on presidential campaigns, so to speak, and then it transcends down to all the other major positions. How realistic has it been? I mean, can you indeed control the spending of presidential elections, for example?
Of course, you can always make laws to control spending. And the laws must be something that we can enforce. The challenge we have here is the fact that we assume that it will be business as usual. Everybody in this industry will tell you that it has not been business as usual. That things have dropped by over 40% across the board. Apart from isolated states, that there were heavy things. Most other states were, in fact, you will not know the election we hold in 4 days, because there's nothing in the air to show that there is something as big as an election going on. That is part of the reflection. It doesn't mean that those who are given the job to monitor, that these rules are not bent. will still do their job. But as you say in Yoruba, you know exactly what's going on. And even if they've breached that law, I'm sure the spending is not up to what we spent in 2015.
Is that what you also feel now? That do you share in the argument, for example?
The mistake we make is that we always zero in everything to spending after the emergence of the candidates. We have to calculate, like elections are rigged before the general elections. You know that during the first registration, you don't encourage your people to go and register for the election is already rigged against you. So why can't we get, why can't INEC get, not influence anyway, why can't INEC get the parties, the candidates, examine their accounts, get the bodies to closely monitor their accounts before the primaries? Because it is before and after the primaries that you really spend money. So far you become the candidate of the party. In most cases, the responsibility for winning the election rests on the party. Because when you win the election, like governorship or presidential, you have to share the spoils of office among all the stakeholders in the party. So let us make sure that before doing the primaries, all these bodies are functioning well, so that they curtail the amount of money you can spend during the primaries of the party. Because we are not taking note of the primary. The primary is very fundamental to the success of any political party. Let's say you want to be governor now. How much do you spend for your delegates? It is part of the money.
Spending, like I said, these things are relative. Because if I give you a bill of something that you and I know they sell for 10,000, and I told you I bought it for 500 naira. As far as the law is concerned, I have fulfilled all righteousness.
Yes, right.
So you and I will know that you can't buy that thing for 500 now. But as far as I'm concerned, I have a vendor who gave it to me with a proper invoice. That those things I'm buying is for 500 naira per unit. And I've paid for 500,000 units, which comes out to about 1 billion.
Right.
Yeah. And we can't keep on pretending that we don't know what's going on. But like I said, it will get there. But for now, it's obvious that thing has come down. Not to the level of the law.
Self-regulation.
But you still get there ultimately.
But how does this, I won't call it an innovation now, because as far as Gani is concerned, he's not that moved. It's not moved at all. But how will this correct this sticky area, gentlemen, now of vote buying, vote selling? INEC remains concerned. We're only days away to the elections. How will this have any impact at all on correcting the trend?
Yeah, I think what we saw during the Osun-Ekiti, Anambra elections have given INEC enough ammunition to look for laws and rules to correct that anomaly. But like Alhaji Jakande once said, if you make a law in Nigeria at 9 a.m., by 9:30, Nigerians are already looking for ways to ensure it doesn't work. So I'm sure whatever, because right now you cannot go with the phone, you cannot go into the polling booth with your phone. But remember, I'm sure, even when they were doing it in some of the state elections, people devised ways to do it. They have handbands. Some people put hanky at the back to identify themselves. Or people, they will give you stuff that's not against the law. If I give Edmond an hanky now, I give him blue hanky. He knows what that means. The policeman looking at him doesn't get what I'm saying. And I simply pick the hanky and clean his face. But the hanky told him the person is voting for, and with that hanky, he can come back and get paid.
And get paid for them.
So, like I said, we throw up a lot of unnecessary righteousness in this country instead of facing the reality that politicians will be politicians. And
they will always try to outsmart, to
outwork
the system. Do you have a contrary opinion? Are you saying this law now, or this work that this group will do, will not find a way to...
No, this group is different. That's a different question. This group deals with figures. It's what I present to them.
So it is what they are debating. It has nothing to do with it. When you go to the field of politics, and how politics is played.
Okay, kindly pause. Coco from Abuja. Good evening.
Yes.
That's your name, Coco.
Oko.
All right, Okon. Good evening. Welcome. Join in, please.
Good evening. Thank you. Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes. Oko. Okay.
Yeah, we're fine. Please go on.
It's okay, though.
All
but
right.
I won't bother you with that.
Don't worry, we'll correct that. Sorry, just
Now,
carry on.
My question is simply this one. We are all aware the role EFCC is playing in this government. Here is an agency whose chairman wears a badge carrying the sitting president's picture. How can somebody ask him to track or monitor political parties' expenditure? His appearance alone shows he will not be fair.
Well,
Right.
We are also aware that the moment people cross over to the ruling party, their cases are suspended. So how can somebody ask such a person to track campaign funds? Number two, I wanted to ask them, but my line did not go. If a sitting minister cannot follow the rules of engagement,
All right. Okon, thank you very much for those points you've made. Please carry on.
the questions. Okay.
If, we are discussing about the players. You see, the most important thing is that it is the player that determines the outcome of a particular election. So the players include the voters, the supporters, and the canvassers. You know, now people go to house campaign. People are no more devising. If all this crowd you see, you can never believe when you see the people at the crowd of the president. The following day, you will see another opposing party coming. You even know which you wish. So in most cases, relatively, a strength of a candidate is no more determined by the crowd that they are able to gather because they can have money to hire the crowd. That is one aspect we have not dealt with. But I think what we have to deal with is the attitude of the voters themselves and the electorate as to how they allow themselves to be bought.
Yes. Because
nobody can beat them to it. Nobody can beat the politicians to it. And the electorate made themselves, 60% of them, they made themselves ready instrument to circumvent this particular law. So that
once
is
the electorate changes attitude,
when they change their attitude,
the power still lies in their hands.
The power lies in their hands. But if they don't change their attitude, the power lies in the hand of the politicians. And the middlemen who recruit people,
drive the
who
system.
give them the money.
All right. Well, that said, we'll continue to see how things pan out as we head to the polls, of course. Insecurity cannot ravage the society without some people behind it. Some unscrupulous elements are responsible for the perpetration. To reverse such people are also key. So citizens must lead the fight in the face of the daunting security challenges across Nigeria. President Muhammadu Buhari has now charged traditional rulers to take responsibility for security in their communities. President Buhari gave the charge at a meeting with traditional rulers in Gusau, Zamfara State, saying they are the closest authorities to the people. He wants the monarchs to do more in curbing banditry and kidnapping in the areas. Gani, could this just be the key, for example? Now, could this just be the missing link now in the face of this rather alarming insecurity, this level of insecurity? Zamfara State is just there as a ready example.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, but in the whole pocket of inanities, this will take the cake, because a man was employed solely to provide security. That's the job of government: provide security, shelter, and food, and ensure that we are safe. You cannot pass the buck to a man who does not control any army, does not control any police, and all that, because their job is basically to ensure their peace and security in their area. But somebody is being paid. Somebody was elected to do this job. You cannot pass the buck to a poor man who will probably become king because his great-grandfather happens to arrive first with the first cow.
That's not the case always anyway.
So that's why I said it's an inanity of higher proportion. Because normally the Nigerian government is the one charged with the responsibility of securing our lives and properties. What traditional rulers can do is to ensure that those people who live in their communities obey the rules and they report them on time. but it's not their job.
He was addressing them as partners.
Even as partners, you must know where we are going. The role of a father is different from the role of a mother. And you can always tell your wife things you want them to do. It doesn't take away your rights as the head of the family. And that, to me, is why I said we should not take certain things to a level that people will think we are a very unserious nation.
Is that what you think it is? In the president's word, he called the royal fathers the most trusted repository of local intelligence. Is that,
yes,
how do you view this?
If the president is coming home to the fact that specific rules have to be given to the traditional rulers in terms of local intelligence, in terms of security, that is another thing entirely. If he's making this statement because he's a politician at this point in time, and because the security of the nation, at least the president has tried in his own best way. But in terms of security, in terms of many other things, it has not been possible. If it is in terms of sharing that responsibility with the government and with the police, one can accept. But we have to accept one thing. No specific rule has been given to traditional rulers except by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, except even the National Council of State where they meet. Not all of them are members of the National Council of State. Not all the traditional rulers. But traditionally, as fathers, like he said, they have to be responsible, they have to be interested in what happens to their subjects. But as elected officials, the onus lies on the governors and the president, who are the chief executives of both the state and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So I think as fathers, traditional rulers should be interested in what happens to their words, but they should not be dragged into it, except as a particular law.
Do they even have? Okay, fine.
Let
me even follow. Let me follow your leading. Let me follow your leading now, because the Vice President Osinbajo also said that perhaps now is the time to give more power under the Constitution, or maybe create a law for them to give them more powers. Could that also help?
The process of changing the Constitution is clear-cut. It's not by talking to them. It's by doing an executive bill and sending it for them to do the job.
Absolutely.
I get tired of our politicians always looking for ways to call black-white. You know the things to do. It's there. It's written in the Constitution. You want to change the process. You want to empower them. You know how to do that. You want them to become your partner in progress. You know how to do that. Most traditional rulers are employees of the local government. They are employees.
Yes.
Despite all the paraphernalia.
What makes them employees?
They are paid salaries. Most of them
they get something. Okay.
So you understand what I'm saying? So if you say that it's about time, it's not by saying it's about time. It's about doing it. Show me the bill you sent to the National Assembly that you want to empower traditional rulers. Then you cannot tell me the story that it's not saying we will do it. Do it. Because like I said, these people have been canvassing for a role in the last 50 years. Give us a role that we can hold. If you know the history of the Nigerian police, before the military came, you know that there's even some very powerful traditional rulers who have policemen under their control. Yes. That's how good they were.
In negotiations, we have native authority.
Yeah, that's the king's control. All these were taken away by the coup of 1966 and subsequent military incursion into our democracy.
Transferring all the powers in the regions and the states to the center.
No matter how big the king is, or the Oba or the Obi, is simply an employee
of the local government chairman.
So why you now tell them we'll look for more laws? With what? Do the bill. Then send it. If they don't do it, it's a different thing.
Let it be signed into law.
Politicians have a way of just creating
But when we get to that, perfect scenario now, let's look at the powers that these traditional rulers have indeed. I mean, do they really have this much power? We see the Boko Haram menace too in the northeast, how the soldiers, our troops also, canvass for more support, more release of information, and they try to be more friendly with the residents there.
In the recess of it, from May 27, July 29, 1966, we have removed, we have screened all the traditional rulers of any power they may have by transferring those powers into the hands of the federal government, not even with the regional or state government. So by asking them now to do what they are not empowered by law to do, it's like asking too much from them. Yes, like I said before, they can be ensured with the safety of their children, but that safety is also questioned. That safety is also defined by the powers they have. So what we can do now is to go back to that 1966 law and suspend. You know, the 1966 constitution was suspended.
63.
It was not, 63 constitution was suspended. It was not entirely
not
revoked.
scrapped.
And for us to invoke the constitution again, we have to suspend the 1966 military constitution, which says that all powers of the state has to be
Decree
focused
number
on
5
center
of
of 1966.
Right.
So to invoke 1963, we have to suspend 1966, which means it is 1963 that I can give the power which the president said. And the president has said that he's comfortable with the kind of unity system we have in the country. It's a contradiction in terms. But that was why I said the other time that for the president to be asking traditional rulers and the vice president, it's like they're just playing politics. Let them give them the power, backed by the Constitution of Nigeria, to be the. In those days, you know, whenever any armed robber or any thief strike in your area, the traditional ruler will call the police. They know those people to take because they know the kind of thief that will come. They know the kind of burglars. They know petty thieves.
They know their
real thieves. They know their base. Because in those days, before you can join the police force, the local government chairman or your compound head must sign for you. They know the kind of person they are recruiting to the police. Not in this case where somebody will come from Agbo. You ask him to come and be police chief in Kara Namuda or come and be police chief in Enugu. It's not possible. It's not possible. So you cannot expect him to police Abeokuta very well. That is far from Agbo, about 6 hours drive. So the problem now is that let the president, vice president walk the talk by transferring or apportioning through the National Assembly enough power to the traditional rulers to be able to be in effective and efficient control of their communities. All right,
that said, we're about ending the program. That I'd like your final words, because on the flip side, there've also been some allegations of compromise now by these traditional chiefs themselves now. But by and large, what do you have to say in ending?
Again, what I said in the beginning is what I'll say at the end. Walk the talk, make the law. Of course, they are human beings, they have their own biases. You cannot take that away from them. But their position makes sure that, by and large, they must remain neutral. But a man without any form of power, don't forget that even during this particular, I don't know whether it's Zamfara or one of those states in the north, where they even chased away the traditional ruler from
yes,
from the state, from
and they also form
the town.
We've seen them falling also.
We've
seen them also being victims.
Exactly. Right? So, just to a point that we just have to be serious about our country and stop this grandstanding when we know that we will not do it. Passing the buck to...
Let us practicalize it.
Yeah. All
right, gentlemen. Gani Kayode Balogun and Tunde Abaton, we appreciate your time with us always on Journalist Hangout. And thanks to you two out there for keeping us company and to all the calls that came in. Join us again tomorrow for another episode of the program. Also, the program, Journalist Hangout, you can watch that on other platforms, showing on the screen, on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Feedback channel remains Journalist Hangout at TVC News NG. Thank you for watching. I'm Kemi Fola Adeyemo. Bye for now. God bless Nigeria.